In this video, I am going to show you how to find temperate rainforest in Britain, and we'll also provide some notes on what to expect when you do. It isn't compulsory. Typically on this channel, we are visiting prehistoric sites in landscapes like this, and we frequently get the question, where are all the trees? And when were they chopped down? It is estimated that 20% of Britain was once cloaked in temperate rainforest. Note that today only 10% of England is wooded, 13% of Britain. Many believe it was down to characters like this needing planks aplenty for his ships in the days of merry old England. Or in the north, some see this scoundrel as responsible with all his harrying. But in the upland northern England, it was neither. Cereal cultivation and pollen analysis now shows us that it happened across the Bronze Age. That's a long period, and clearance clearly did start in the Neolithic, and it was carrying on into the Iron Age. But the bulk of it, the treeless landscapes we are familiar with today, have been like that in reality for 2,000 to 4,000 years. Now, it's down to Guy Shrubsole, what a name, that awareness of the precious nature of our remaining temperate rainforest has increased. Fragments have clung on at the margins of things, up the gills and at the edge of woodland. And it's because of good old Guy that we now have this. I'll put the link to this in the description, but what you can basically do is you can add the rainforest zone on, so you can see the area that was once covered in temperate rainforest. The rest of the country was covered in trees as well, by the way, but that would have been deciduous. Then you can add in the rainforest fragments, so you can see where they have now recorded surviving little bits of the temperate rainforest. And for those Percy throwers amongst you, you can add in the mosses, the liverworts, and the lichens. I identified Naddle Woods alongside Haweswater, a place that Guy had actually went to when he was putting his book together. So I decided to pop along and take a look. This is straight away looking very promising. In fact, I noticed on the Bridleway sign we've got some moss growing. Open that. Straight away I can see I'm going to get a soaking. The footpath is totally ensconced, if that's the right word, in the bracken, but this is looking great. Yeah, I'm soaking already. I'm trying to sort of think what the difference is between this and a normal wood, whatever we'd call that. But there is a difference. Over there on, I don't know what that is from here, I can't tell, probably an oak tree. I can see that, you know, we've got ferns growing on the tree. And that is very much what temperate rainforest is about. A mild, wet atmosphere that enables plants to grow on other plants, basically. It's interesting, as I'm climbing up there, there is a really old wall alongside the path, which raises the question for me, are we in rainforest that is continuous back to prehistory, or was this once a farmed landscape and the rainforest has recovered here? There's some pretty old looking trees about, but I don't have the means to work that out. But if it is that, it does illustrate that point, doesn't it? That given the chance, the rainforest will recover and would return. I can sort of hear something mechanical whirring away down there, and I'm hearing the occasional car on the lane. However, it is a magical environment and it does sort of transform you back. I think they estimate that around about 20% of Britain could be home to temperate rainforest, and that may have been the sort of extent of it, all down this sort of western seaboard of the country, the Atlantic seaboard, if you like. That's where they think the rainforest was in prehistory, before man developed the axe and started chopping away. Actually, I'm not sure if that's a machine I can hear or just the sound of the water flowing over through the sluices or whatever it is. But let's go a little bit further. No, it is a machine I can hear, and water, but I can hear a machine. You can never escape from people, can you? But it is very interesting doing this, because normally I'm tearing through these sort of places to get to some, you know, barrow or the likes, bit of crumbly Roman rampart, and I don't really stop and take notice. This video today is about me stopping and taking notice of the environment that I'm in, and considering how familiar this would have been to our prehistoric ancestors. Now, clearly, I am no David Bellamy. I hope that is obvious. I do know that that is a foxglove, though, isn't it? But I'm not going to be able to identify any of the liverworts, the ferns, the lichens that we see today. This is very much an exercise about forcing me out of my comfort zone, making an antiquarian get away from the minutiae of some antiquity in the landscape and to actually think about what it was like around that thing when it was created and how it then subsequently changed. So yeah, we definitely have a wall coming through here, and we've got temperate forest on either side of it. So I suspect that at some stage in the history of modern man, this has been sort of opened up, but the forest has returned. What we've got, if we step off the path and look up, as we go up, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, it's really dense here, the forest, but there are rocky sort of crags. So up on those crags, I suspect that's where we may have the continuity of the forest, if you like. Maybe those areas are where it sort of clung on through all the various periods of intensive farming. But down here, I think it is recovering. This is very much what we should see. Look at this. What is it? An oak tree, and we've got layers of moss growing off of it. As I come round this side of the sort of boundary to the woods, we've got the cultivated land starting to reappear there on my left. A sort of stark contrast between the natural and the influence of man. I'm going to get lots of tick comments, aren't I, on this video, because I'm wearing shorts in all this bracken. But it is hot once again, really humid, which I'd normally be all moaning about that, but actually today it sort of lends something to the atmosphere of it. You know, I want this forest to be mild and damp, and that is very much what it is. That is what the temperate rainforest that the Neolithic folks that traipse through here would have been familiar with. That's probably enough hot and humid now, though. And I'm undoubtedly infested with ticks, aren't I? And as I come out of that bracken, suddenly a very different atmosphere. This small section up here clearly is some sort of plantation, sort of single species, the absolute antithesis of the natural British rainforest. The bracken, incidentally, you walk in the Lake District, you'll see this a lot. Open fell sides, but with loads of bracken. That's one of the things that indicates that there was once forest there. And in their sort of thought processes about how they rewild these landscapes, that's one of the ideas, is that where they find bracken, that is where they would restore the forest, leaving the open areas for the grazing and agriculture that we do still need. We just need to find a more harmonious way to make the two fit together. And then we get out into a more open landscape. But as you will see, it is not our usual sheep-shorn blankness. This is a landscape which is being rewilded. So it gives us a sort of an insight into what the later Neolithic landscape, early Bronze Age landscape may have looked like. As the forest is pushed back, land is cleared and opened up for farming, but not in the sort of intensive monoculture way that we're familiar with today. Rather wonderfully and coincidentally, just where I happened to stop here as I came out of the forest, over here in front of me, there is an ancient field wall system going on. Now, I'm not saying that this is prehistoric by any means. I've got no way of knowing that, but it's definitely a pre-enclosure type wall system. It's got sort of facing rubble in the middle. It's not got that sort of enclosure thinness, and very large natural boulders sort of put into place there. So it gives us a sort of a flavour of that Neolithic incursion into the landscape. The forest disappearing backwards, field systems starting to emerge. Two quick political disclaimers. I am apolitical here. Number one, I'm being bitten to death by horseflies as I speak. Serves you right, I can hear some of you saying, those of you who suggest that I shouldn't ever wear my shorts in these sort of places. But number two, this rewilding Haweswater project is a joint venture between United Utilities, the water people, which seems slightly ironic considering what they've allegedly been doing sort of not too far away from here, and the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Now, I know both of those organisations, and this type of scheme are not always popular with the farming community, and we do have the farming community watching this channel. So I just want to stress, I'm not passing any judgment, any comment either way on this. I'm not being political here at all. It just does provide us with this great way to illustrate the late Neolithic and then through into the Bronze Age, the change in landscape as we see the forest disappearing and the establishment of an open landscape. With fields, we are on the way to what we are familiar with today. Well, that was pretty good. I literally just walked off of the lane onto a bridleway into the woods, and there it was. I was in a rare fragment of the UK temperate rainforest. I was quite pleased with how that turned out. I hope this slightly more casual, less sort of detailed, less research type of video this week isn't going to lose me any support. I do need a little bit of a break every now and then, and some of them lately have been pretty sort of heavy going. But this is a question that I get asked all the time in the comments. If you look at videos where I've been traipsing across some bleak and desolate moorland to look at a Roman marching camp or a Neolithic long cairn, I quite often get the question, what was the landscape like when these things were built? And a lot of the time, I think people are surprised, one, to hear that we did have temperate rainforest, but I think they are surprised to find out that certainly by the time the Romans arrived, the landscape was very often as we see it today. And that clearance really happened during the Bronze Age. It started in the Neolithic. There's some interesting places where it was pretty much completed in the Neolithic, but certainly the bulk of it in these upland landscapes, the trees were removed by the Bronze Age people with their beakers. I have popped up to the top end of Haweswater Reservoir. I want to make a point. Over there you could see the stark single species conifer plantations that they basically put all around the reservoir when it was created over 100 years ago. You could see those as the antithesis of the indigenous prehistoric temperate rainforest that we're looking at here today. Interestingly, because it's been so dry, you can see the former field structure is starting to re-emerge as the water recedes. I don't think you can see the village bridge. That sometimes shows itself. There was a pub in that village that's now long gone. I think it was called the Dun Cow, something like that. Wainwright actually had a pint there before it was submerged. And to bring us right up to date in terms of the loss of the prehistoric environment, this location here was the last known home of the golden eagle in England. Up until 2015, there was a solitary survivor clinging on here, and then he disappeared. And that was the end of the golden eagle in England. The golden eagle, who no doubt would have been a familiar sight in the skies to our prehistoric ancestors. It was a pretty good exercise. I felt that it put me back into the Mesolithic forest. So I went and did it again, this time Scout Scar, a place that I knew well and that I was surprised to see on the Rainforest Map. However, limited access meant that I walked for miles, ultimately ending up in industrially ravaged plantations where the indigenous rainforest was very much fighting a losing battle. And I didn't find any barrows either, but I suspect that healthier forest is over here where there is no public access. So just manage your expectations on that front. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly different video and that you will be tempted to go out and visit some temperate rainforest near you. If you do, let us know in the comments down below. As usual, thanks to our members. Whew, it has been another hot one this week. Very different from the normal sort of thing that we do. Since I get asked the question, I thought it was worth taking a look to it. Normal service will be resumed next week. For the outro, since I'm in this beautiful, peaceful woodland, as the sun is just about to give up on the day, I thought I'd sit here and soak up the sounds of nature. I'll see you next week. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, someone's put some sort of overlay projector on.